What is going on, Packer Nation, Packer fans? Welcome back to Brendan's Packer Talk and more. This is going to be the first official video of the revamping/rebranding era I'm going into. Instead of it being Brendan's Sports Talk and more, as I said in my welcome channel video, whatever, it's now Brendan's Packer Talk and more. I just feel like I need to be more focused on the Green Bay Packers. I feel like this is going to be easier for me. I'm going to be able to put out more videos, and I'm excited about it, but I already knew what I wanted to talk about. We're just going to get straight into it. The Packers and Buccaneers game. So the Buccaneers, led by Baker Mayfield, went to Lambeau Field against my Green Bay Packers and completely destroyed us, annihilated us. And I'm going to give you some statistics because that's what I do. I have it all written down here on a piece of paper. So the Packers defense versus the Bucs. What happened? 452 yards allowed. 34 points allowed. Should have been 41, but the running back for the Buccaneers, Ricard White, or however you pronounce his name, took a kneel instead, or slid down to the ground, whatever. I didn't really watch the ending of it because I was already mad as it is. So, or mad as it was. So, I didn't want to watch any more of the game. Baker Mayfield had a perfect passer rating. That's unacceptable. The highlights of the defense, though, we had 5 sacks and we had a fumble recovery. But let me tell you this. Every time we sacked them, particularly one play I remembered, it was like we sacked them. It was 2nd and 19. Pass defense gave up like a 20-plus yard pass, and it was ridiculous. And I also want to go back to the last game versus the Giants. Tommy DeVito. You let a Tommy DeVito team come into... Well, actually, we were in MetLife. Completely annihilate us on defense. Offense was fine. I think offense for these past 2 games, they got 20-plus points. I mean, let's go back to that Giants game while we're at it, Jordan Love. We were down. Jordan Love goes down the field. And he puts us up. We're leading 22-21 now because Malik Heath got that touchdown. Couldn't convert on the 2-point. So you're thinking, okay, well then defense needs to make a stop. No stops. All the time with Joe Barry, it's soft coverage, and Tommy DeVito was picking the zone defense apart. And I'm going to go on my phone for a little bit because I think part of the problem with Joe Barry's scheme, and it's very evident and it keeps on happening again and again, and I have it written down somewhere in these notes. I can't even remember the scheme that he ran. It's called the penny package. And basically what you're seeing, the failure of this penny package is coming from Preston Smith lining up against a really good wide receiver or tight end. Mostly it's a receiver. And that's what happens in this penny package, is a linebacker is always in a mismatch with a wide receiver. Now, I'm not going to go into the depths of the penny package because that's not really what I want to talk about. But I just want to let y'all know that the penny package is part of the problem, if not all of the problem, of why this defense is not doing as good as it is. I would say it's more of a part of the problem. But yeah, it's putting Preston Smith in these terrible coverages. Like, it's a mismatch all the time. I mean, you saw with him lined up against Justin Jefferson a year ago. He's just continued to be lined up against these phenomenal receivers, and you expect him to cover it, and we saw it yesterday. Why is he lined up against a good wide receiver? It just doesn't make sense. Linebackers, especially his size, aren't going to be able to keep up with a speedy wide receiver. I mean, I just don't understand. And I'm going to read you part of what the penny package is. So, this comes from an article I picked up. Probably like I made this on October 10th. I always write notes on my phone, but here's a little bit of what the penny package is, and it'll explain why Preston Smith is always lined up against a wide receiver. So one of the many failures was that of Green Bay's penny package. a nickel personnel group that removes one of the inside linebackers rather than taking out a defensive lineman in order to put in a nickel defensive back. In theory, the penny package can be incredibly useful. Maintaining a 5-man front can create more one-on-ones in pass rush situations. Penny formations can also prove more stout in the run game, clogging up interior lanes with defensive line bodies and forcing running backs to bounce the ball outside for the safeties and sole inside linebackers to clean up. Unfortunately, the Packers' iteration of the penny is often disappointed. To make matters worse, the rigidity created by Green Bay's scheme and personnel often hurt their defensive efforts. With an outside linebacker room constructed with players who mostly weigh upwards of 260 pounds, Green Bay lacked the ability to consistently drop an edge player into coverage. The result? Most penny fronts become 5-man rushes in pass rush situations, meaning that the secondary was weakened and usually had to play more predictable blitz coverages. That didn't matter as much when Rashawn Gary, the most effective pass rusher on the Packers front, was available to generate quick wins and draw increased protection. And it just goes on to talk about why this package is not meant for the Green Bay Packers. And like I said again, it's a nickel personnel group that removes one of the inside linebackers rather than taking out a defensive lineman in order to put in a nickel D-back. So, and then it explains what the problem is. The outside linebacker room is clearly too big to even, it's just too big. You can't drop these players into coverage, and then that's what happens. And then the secondary becomes weakened and had to play more predictable blitz coverages. And it's just, that is why Preston Smith is dropping into coverage, because you're removing, as it says right here, an inside linebacker rather than taking out a defensive lineman in order to put in a nickel D-back. And that's why these outside linebackers have to drop into coverage to make up for it. To make up for one of them B linemen being taken out. Now, in theory, yes, it does sound great, but the way Joe Barry is running it is not the right way. And you clearly see it with Preston Smith always covering a wide receiver. I mean, it's just not going to work. And it's unfortunate that this keeps on happening. And again, going back to the Giants game, he allowed 24 points in a game-winning field goal, which was included in the 24 points. But I do want to say this. There is a silver lining. Now, before I get to that silver lining, I do want to make some things clear. I do believe with all my heart and all my brain power that Joe Barry should be fired. I mean, you're consistently having bad game after bad game after bad game after bad game. I mean, he's just way too inconsistent. I mean, there are some days where I will admit the defense looks okay/good. But then the real defense comes out, and it came out yesterday against Tampa. It came out against Giants. Stop playing to your competition. You are better than these teams. Now, the Bucs, obviously, that was a tough one, but I feel like that's a winnable game. The Giants was definitely a winnable game. I don't know what's going on, but I definitely think that Joe Barry's scheme, especially with the penny packages that he runs, it has not been fruitful. It has not been fruitful for the Green Bay Packers at all. I mean, clearly, you're giving up, especially with these last two games, 20-plus points. And that's not going to win ball games, especially when you give up 34 points, which should have been 41 against the Buccaneers. I mean, you're shooting yourselves in the foot. I do believe what Tucker Kraft said, one of the tight ends for Green Bay. He said that the only team that's beating the Packers is ourselves, the Packers. I mean, it's clear as day. I mean, I don't know how Joe Barry still has a job. I just think the stats, I mean, you look at it. It's just unacceptable. Yes, you had 5 sacks and a fumble, but look, you did not take any advantage after Baker took a sack. What happened? A 20-yard throw, and it was complete. maybe it was a 5-yard throw, and then it turns out to be a 20 yards, like for the total yardage by the receiver. It's just unacceptable. We're playing too soft of coverage. Joe Barry loves to run these zones, and then he apparently said last game against the Giants, we were in man coverage. We're clearly not in man coverage when people are 9 feet or 9 yards away from the player. That's not man coverage. Man coverage, you should be pressing them, you should be up close, and you should be worrying about a man and not a zone. I just don't think Joe Barry knows what he's talking about and what he's doing anymore. I don't even know why he was hired in the first place. I mean, you look at his track record. He led an 0-16 Lions team. He was a part of that disaster. Why do you even think he changed? And part of this is Matt Lafleur's fault. He's the one that's hiring these guys. So, and Matt Lafleur, he's a whole nother conversation to be had. But I think the main guy right now that needs to be let go of, I don't know how he's still even on the team, is Joe Barry. I think he's making everything worse. Because the offense, yes, there are questionable calls from Matt Lafleur. But the offense is still getting 20-plus points a game. When you have no defense, this is what happens. This defense has cost us so many games this year. It cost us against the Falcons. It cost us against the Giants. It cost us against last game against the Bucs. It's just unacceptable. Those are 3 games that we should have had. We should have definitely had that one against Atlanta. But the defense choked. And look at last year when we had Rodgers. What did the defense do? Choked against the Lions. Choked against the Giants. You know, we had a big lead and the defense had no answers. Now, I'm not saying it's all Joe Barry's fault. I mean, look at the players. They're missing tackles. They're not making these tackles. But at the same time, I feel like the play calls he is calling is putting them in a bad position to where maybe they can't make these tackles. Like, maybe the play calls he's making, it's just not favorable to the defense. But it's just unacceptable. Now we're gonna get into the silver lining. The silver lining out of all of this, the offense. Jordan Love yesterday, solid. 284 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 111.5 passer rating. That's fine. Aaron Jones showed up as well. He finally made his return. He had 13 attempts, 53 yards, 4.1 yards average, 4 receptions. And then after the first drive, they stopped handing the ball off to Jones when it was clearly working. It was working. But you know, that's Matt Lafleur. If something good is happening, we'll just stop calling it. And another thing to get straight with Matt Lafleur is, why are you running a jet sweep 5 or 6 times with Jaden Reed against the Giants? And the Giants are now starting to figure it out, and it became way too predictable. Like, that's something we gotta stop being predictable. We gotta start being consistent and stop being predictable. But I do think, and I know Matt Lafleur, it's not likely, but I do think he should be under fire as well. I think Rich Bisaccia, who I actually loved as a hiring, I agree with Tom Grossi. I watched his video, so I took some notes from his video as well. I did like the hiring. I really thought he had a lot of experience. He knew what he was doing. But this year he completely fell flat on his face. The special teams has not been good, especially our kicker. Maybe that's not all his fault, but even then, it still hasn't been great, especially the kicking side of things. Field goals. He's missing field goals. The kicker, Anders Carlson, he's a rookie, so I'll give him a little bit of leeway, but he's missing easy field goals. He's missing PATs. It's awful. It's horrendous. And then on top of that, you know, not to mention Nixon fumbling the ball, and special teams has not been it this year. Last year was okay. It was fine. I could deal with it, but this year it's been off. So I think, you know, for the Packers at this point, you're sitting at 6-8, third in the division. At least that's what I last saw, unless we moved to 4th. But I think the Bears lost, and the Bears lost barely. They almost actually won that game, because almost to a Hail Mary. But the guy, it was crazy. He had it in his hands and lost it, and then it was picked off by the Browns to end the game. But yeah, we're sitting 3rd in the NFC North. Your playoff chances are diminishing. Where do you go from here? The way I see it, the way I see it, you've got one of two options. You either just lose the rest of the games on purpose, which they're not going to do. You sit and tank. You figure out what the heck is going on. I think one of the biggest solutions to the problems that you're having is getting rid of Joe Barry. He's a horrible defense coordinator. Never liked him. I didn't understand why he was hired. He's horrible. Needs to go. I also think you fire Rich Bisaccia as well. Let him go. You start evaluating this team. We need to make some personnel changes as well. I think Darnell Savage being one of them. He never plays. He's like made out of glass. You might need to take a look at I think we just need to take a look at the secondary as a whole. I'm not really too concerned with D-line / edge rushers, but we could use more of that. But I really would like to take a deeper look into the secondary. What is going on? But I think it all starts with the defense coordinator. He's putting him in terrible positions anyways. So I think he needs to go. I think the special teams guy, Rich Bisaccia, needs to go. Just a lot to clean up. We have a lot to we need to clean a lot of things up. That's for sure. And I think it starts with making the common sense choices. I also think Matt Lafleur, he might need to go as well. Not that I don't like the guy or whatever. I just feel like he's not consistent either. But they're not going to do that. We already know that. But I felt like he could definitely make some better play calls. But I definitely would say that yesterday's game and the game against the Giants was on the defense. I mean, just plain and simple. And if we get torched on Sunday by Carolina, I definitely think Joe Barry's time here is over. I can't take it no more. I already know it's over. It's over. I mean, he's done. There's no way you're going to tell me that he's still on this team after all that. Just impossible. But I mean, Packer fans, we got a lot to look forward to next year anyways. This year was just kind of a wing it year. Let's find out what we are. So the silver lining is that the offense is great. Fantastic. Playmakers all around. Tight ends look fantastic. Wide receivers look fantastic. Plentiful. We got plenty of weapons on this team. Jordan Love looks like the guy. Definitely needs to work on his footwork, though. That's one thing he needs to get straightened out. He's got one of the better quarterback coaches, as Aaron Rodgers raves about Tom Clements all the time. So, well, I definitely think, next year, at this point, 6-8, you got to win out. You got to find a way to win out if you want any sort of playoff chance. But I don't see the playoffs as being likely at this point. I think you just take it game by game and see what you can do. But if you can win out, that's great. But don't be surprised if we lose a game or two down this stretch. I don't think we're ready yet for the playoffs. I don't. I think we need to get a better defensive coordinator. I think personnel changes need to happen. Start looking at everybody. Some players I don't think you really need to look at as hard, like Jordan Love and all that. I definitely think some players I think you definitely need to look at Campbell. Yeah, he's a great linebacker, don't get me wrong, but some of the plays, he just has not been making the plays. Definitely look at Darnell. Definitely look at Eric Stokes. Definitely looking at Jair. I'm looking at all these. I'm looking at more of the defense than the offense right now. But, yeah, I think definitely a lot of things got to change. Things got to change real quick. So, especially when these guys talk to the media, too. They say some confusing things. Especially Joe Barry. Don't even get me started. He needs to go. He's horrible. He's horrendous. He needs to get out of here. I think that's going to do it for this video. There's not much more to talk about. There's nothing else I got to say. We got to regroup ourselves as a team. We got to find a way to win these next 3 games, regardless of the horrendous defense. Hopefully that will fix itself. But it probably won't if we keep the same guy, Joe Barry. You won't see any changes. But, yeah, I think the Packers have got a real problem right now in terms of that. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. Hope y'all enjoyed that video. Talking Packers, talking the Buccaneers game from yesterday, talking the Giants game, talking it all. But I think the man that needs to be scrutinized and needs to get the heck out of here is Joe Barry. I think he's the main issue, and Rich Bisaccia also needs to go. But that'll probably be at the end of the season. That'll all happen. into the offseason. But hope y'all enjoyed this video. We're going to get some more content out, and I hope y'all have a great day, and I hope y'all really enjoyed this video. And until next time, peace.